Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Medesic, the co-admin of the server Asterion Minecraft, which is currently a modded client multiplayer server for Minecraft. And I'm going to be going over the long history of our server. We've had quite a history. We've been around since beta 1.7.3, and I'm going to be going over some of the different eras and revisit old times, basically, for the server veterans and maybe for the non-veterans who are just interested in what our server was and how it's become the way it is. So here we go. I guess we'll start off with this over here, beta 1.7. Alright, well, here it is. This is where it all started. It's called Kian and Trevor's Primary Mining Complex, and, well, it is what it says it is. It's a little burrow that me and my friend Kian made when we first started playing Minecraft. And all we did was just download the vanilla Minecraft server software, and then just put it on one of our computers, and then run it whenever we wanted to play. Eventually the world developed into a system where we were inviting people to play that were outside of the house, but we still would have to run up the server whenever people wanted to play it. So Rob offered up a solution to put it on the dedicated server that we owned at the time, which is called Madras, and that's what we ended up doing. And this gave us the opportunity to run the server 24/7 so that people could just join and then go as they please and build stuff and make our city and make our world bigger, basically. And with that came the opportunity for a lot of people to expand on our world and build more and more structures, and as you can see quite clearly, there's a lot of extraneous materials being used in the building, and that's because eventually our server developed a more creative aspect rather than survival. Instead of people taking the time to build things, they would simply ask us for the materials. And because we sort of agreed with the creative philosophy, we would let them have it. And eventually we started building these settlements called cities, and that we called cities, and this in particular is Crater City. The one that you saw previously was Madras City. People would build houses in these cities of however they pleased of their own design, and the world just got bigger and bigger, and people would move out to new places and then start building new settlements. So it really was an amazing private community server for the time that we just very much enjoyed. However, me and Rob started experimenting with different server software and new server functions that allowed for more expansive function and more abilities and features for the players. And eventually, we even added a survival world in counterpart to this world, a strictly survival world where you have to build materials and do stuff. And we actually incorporated a spawn location as well towards the end of the 1.7 cycle. And this is it right here. This is the building, and we actually had ranks and teleportation locations and yeah, and rules. So we were on our way to becoming a public server, and that was the big leap that we made into the transition between 1.7 and 1.8, is we started developing new worlds that we would eventually use in 1.8 for the new public debut of Asterion Minecraft. With Minecraft Beta 1.8 came the introduction of our server gone public, Asterion Minecraft. On September 20th of 2011, we posted our server to the online server listings and opened our gates for public players. And sure enough, players poured in and came on to see what our server was all about and explore it. Our survival and creative was linked by a hub world, a configuration that we've kept since then. Our nether was also linked to the hub world to prevent the survival from being polluted by nasty amounts of obsidian portals. We also have Spleef, Maze Spleef, and other Spleef arenas, as well as a PvP arena, which we eventually got working. Our server was very much public, and gained quite a bit of popularity in the time, actually, because it was up a lot earlier than other Bucket servers. Our survival was factions PvP, and a lot of server veterans will note this time as a prime time of faction survival PvP. Because it was highly unmodified, it was fairly unrestricted, so players were able to commence in some hardcore PvP elements. A lot of gameplay was extending to some serious warfare, such as vandalism, trolling, and of course, outright factions warring. A lot of drama was becoming a center of attention with faction survival at the time, and Rob really didn't like it. Although some veterans might say they have enjoyed it, and a lot of great factions have been born in the 1.8 period, Rob has since set in some restrictions and different rules which have changed survival since then. It was in 1.8 that our creative side was born. Our creative system had since adopted Plot Helper, which is a system that we use to organize the plots into a 100 by 100 plot grid system. However, Beta 1.8's plot system was organized completely by the admins manually, using World Edit and World Guard. We had to use regions, and we had to set regions manually for the players in order for them to have a plot. So our creative was really very maintenance heavy, and it was a working system. Instead of the simple coordinate system, the XY coordinate system that you see in Creative now, we actually had color-coded in one dimension and then number-coded in the other dimension. So the X was a color and the Y was a number. So you could have plots say blue 7 or pink 4. Nevertheless, a lot of people still ended up with plots, and a lot of fantastic builds really came to light, and it really set the bar for the future in Asterion Minecraft Creative for spectacular, gigantic, and absolutely fantastically artistic builds. It was all started in 1.8 with the introduction of Creative, and it's just fantastic that we've kept Creative since then because, wow. Of course, with a public server experiencing over 10 to 20 players a day, it's easy to see how problems would arise with its layout and its design and certain aspects of the server. So that's what Rob and I set out to do, address some of those problems and make the server a better place for everyone. One of the first things that we sought to improve was the spawn world. Rob wanted something bigger, larger, more symmetrical, more logical, and more welcoming. Hence, Bedrock World, and its centerpiece, the spawn tower, with a high-up observatory point where players can spawn and the portals go between the spawn towers in each world. Each world has its own spawn tower, which corresponds to the main one in the hub world. The Nether, Survival, and Creative all have one, to serve as a reference point so the player always knows where the spawn is in each world. Our survival was still factions-based. However, a lot of restrictions were being put in place to prevent abuse of the factions plugin in the combat aspect and in the warfare aspect for raiding and for hardcore PvP to satisfy more of the players who didn't want to be involuntarily thrown into war. As a result, combat engagement was almost entirely altered. You had to ask for the consent of the faction that you were planning to war with if you wanted to go to war with them. This really dissatisfied a lot of veterans who favored hardcore PvP, which the Beta 1.8 survival allowed for. So, a lot of server veterans left at this time period. However, in contrast, our creative was growing by leaps and bounds. Thanks to Rob's Plot Helper plugin, players were very easily able to claim their own plots without having to worry about administrative assistance or permission. On top of that, they could immediately begin to work with a work of art that they had in mind. As a result, you have plots upon plots upon plots from spawn of different creative builds. Nature, city, sculptures, slogans, roller coasters of gigantic proportion, pixel art. You have everything that you could possibly think that someone could make in creative Minecraft. It's there. Not bound by survival's limitations of resources and crafting and time consumption. Even people we don't know that have just randomly come on and claimed a plot and got building. And also because of Plot Helper's ease of use and because it's so easy to claim plots in creative, people have thought to use creative not just for creative building but also for experimentation of survival. People have made houses and traps, redstone engines, redstone creations in creative that they eventually use in survival. Whole factions have claimed a plot with a collaborative effort to make a faction's base in creative first, and then using the design in survival when they have the necessary resources. It really is in 1.0 when creative is first used to the extent that it is still used today. And then of course in the spawn world we've got all the amenities that we had in 1.8, the spleef arenas, the PvP arena. Rob was pretty adamant about putting those /policy signs there. And then in the backside from this view you can see the museum, the shop, the lobby. There's the castle maze to the right, and then in the far back corner there you have the gymnasium, which was also a new addition in the Bedrock world. The spawn world would have been perfect, however we were having a slight problem with players jumping over the wall and then generating more infinite bedrock and wasting space on our map file. So what we did in 1.2 is we modified it so that it was completely indoor, so that it was nearly impossible for players to escape and then generate infinite bedrock like they did in 1.0 and 1.1. Now of course, many will remember that Minecraft 1.3 is when we started making the transition into Rabbit Minecraft, modified Minecraft, instead of vanilla bucket Minecraft. However, we still ran this temporary server here, so that you could still enjoy the company of the server community while we waited for the Rabbit client. However, people still loathed the loss of creative, so we took the liberty of starting up a creative competition. We restarted a temporary creative world with the intention of starting a creative competition of who could make the most spectacular plot for me and Rob to vote on. People ended up using it mostly just for a creative world, but some people were really serious about the competition. But the long wait has long since subsided, the Rabbit client has long since been finished, and the server now exists as the Rabbit multiplayer server that you know and love today. I really hope you guys found this to be an interesting video, and I hope you guys have enjoyed this server as much as I have. Adios Minecrafters, and I hope your next play session is on our server.